When it comes to the GOAT discussion in the UFC, there's a lot of names thrown into the mix, some worthy of the GOAT title and some not. But everyone's GOAT list usually has the same names in it. You got GSP, Jon Jones, Mighty Mouse, Anderson Silva, and if you're a casual, you'll throw in Khabib. In this video, I'm going to break down all of the arguments on why these fighters are called the GOAT of the sport, and at the end of the video, I'll even rank them all and let you guys know who I think is the GOAT of the UFC. First, let's start with the one and the hopefully only Jon Jones. Out of everyone on this list, he's definitely fought the best competition. And he has a really good record. He does have one loss, but a lot of people kind of push that to the side because he didn't lose because he lost the fight. He lost because he got disqualified for using 12-6 elbows, and those were illegal at the time. And I also see a lot of people saying that they think that fight should get overturned and actually be a victory for Jon Jones because the 12-6 elbows are legal now. But I think that is incredibly stupid to say because they were illegal when Jon Jones did them. Yes, it is a stupid rule and it should have never been illegal to start with, but they still were a rule and he still broke them. So personally, I don't think that fight should get overturned at all. The only time Jon Jones actually lost a fight was when he fought Dominic Reyes, but then the judges robbed that fight. If you don't think Dominic Reyes won that fight, you actually just have to be a casual. But anyways, other than that loss, he is a double champ. He's fought really good competition, and he's pretty undeniable for the GOAT spot. But there is a dark side to Jon Jones. The downside to the argument of saying that Jon Jones is the GOAT is that he has failed 5 drug tests. That's the most out of anyone in the sport. He has the record for most failed drug tests, which is pretty insane. And he cheats in literally every single one of his fights. So if you ask me, putting those two things together, I don't even think that we should include him in the GOAT status conversation. Plus, he's a terrible human outside of the UFC, so we shouldn't even give him the satisfaction of saying he's the GOAT. Now let's talk about Georges St-Pierre. Georges St-Pierre is kind of known as the perfect UFC fighter. He's super technical, he has good grappling, he's an extremely good wrestler, and his base isn't even wrestling, so that's even more impressive. And he's pretty smart. A lot of people just kind of, a lot of other fighters will just say that he's the perfect fighter. But yes, there are a couple big elephants in the room when you're talking about Georges St-Pierre being the GOAT of the sport. And that is that Georges St-Pierre has lost twice in his career. But in his defense, he has some pretty good reasons on why he lost those fights. And they were at the start of his career, and he avenged them both and destroyed his opponent that beat him for the first time in the rematches. He absolutely decimated both of them. With Matt Hughes, GSP has kind of idolized him a bit too much. He was GSP's favorite fighter, so he kind of viewed Matt Hughes as this unbeatable figure. So if you view your opponent as unbeatable, it's probably going to be pretty hard to get that mental block out of your head when you're fighting him. And he was doing pretty good up until he got submitted by that armbar. But then, in the rematch, Georges St-Pierre knocked out Matt Hughes with the head kick and won the fight. So he avenged that loss. And with Matt Serra, Georges St-Pierre got inside his own head again because the betting odds were super in George's favor. He just got super cocky and he was like, oh, I'm going to destroy Matt Serra. There's no way Matt Serra can beat me in a fight. Everyone was telling George that he's going to have the easiest fight of his career. Everything was just pointing towards Georges St-Pierre winning. So then when Matt Serra clipped George with a super good shot, George just got super pissed off and then rushed back in just to get it back because he was kind of embarrassed that someone like Matt Serra would even hit Georges St-Pierre himself. And then he just got hit more times and he got knocked out. But then in the rematch, he absolutely destroyed Matt Serra. It's probably one of the most one-sided fights in UFC history. He just took him down and absolutely destroyed him. Georges St-Pierre's greatest enemy is himself. But if you ask me, I think that he just had a bully named Matt, so that's why he had trouble fighting Matt. And unlike Jon Jones, GSP also never cheated in his career. Yes, there is that rumor that he was greasing himself up when he fought BJ Penn so then he can get submitted as easily, but that was never confirmed. And even if he did do that, it wasn't GSP's fault because he's not the one rubbing Vaseline on him. It's his coaches. So if anything, his coaches cheated and not him. And yes, there is a possibility that Georges St-Pierre was on some type of steroid because he got pretty big in his career, like he was pretty jacked. But I think it's pretty unlikely just because he was one of the main reasons why the UFC got drug testing. He was like the only fighter pushing towards testing the fighters. So unless that was like a 2000 IQ play, I think it's safe to say that Georges St-Pierre is clean. But again, you never know. And for anyone saying, oh, well, George never fought anyone that good because he fought all these guys back in like the old era of the UFC where people weren't really like as technical and as good as they are now. You can't really use that argument because he did fight actually good people back in the day, and then he came back towards the modern era of the UFC and then completely destroyed Michael Bisping and then became a double champ. So that also just adds to his legacy, and you can't really say he just fought a whole bunch of non-technical people when he beat the champion in the modern era of the UFC. Now the next fighter we are going to talk about is just for the casuals. It's Khabib. Yes, Khabib has a very good record. He has 29 wins and 0 losses, and he's also never bled inside the octagon, which is kind of insane to think about, that he's fought all of these guys and not once did he drop like a drop of blood, which that's just kind of insane to think about. But when you dive deeper into Khabib's resume, you'll very quickly find out that he actually only really fought like 5 good guys, and all of the 5 good guys that he fought had like 0 ground game at the time, so it was pretty easy for him just to run in, wrestle them, and get out of there. Majority of the fighters that Khabib fought were like plumbers, taxi drivers. They were all like part-time fighters, or they were making their debut into MMA, or they were like on a losing record and they just weren't very good. He has a very padded record. He's pretty much fought like 24 people who kind of suck at fighting, and then he fought 2 like average mid-level fighters, and then he only fought 3 actual high-level fighters. But then again, those guys don't really have any ground game, so... Plus, Khabib retired way too early, and that does hold back his legacy, like it or not. He did retire way too early and only had like 3 title defenses, I think. But anyways, Khabib is nowhere near GOAT status, and if you want to say Khabib is the GOAT, you might as well just say Islam's the GOAT instead, because Islam has a better like record. Well, not record, but he has a better resume. He's fought better people. He's more well-rounded. He's not as dominant, but he's more well-rounded, and he actually fights good competition. So you might as well just say Islam instead of Khabib. Next up is Anderson Silva, and Anderson Silva is probably one of the most entertaining fighters to watch, like at the time when he was fighting, just because the stuff he does, it's like he's in the Matrix. He'll just dodge everything a guy throws, and then he'll come back in and just knock the guy out. Pretty insane stuff. He has like pretty good flow state, and he has championship heart. When he got absolutely dominated for 5 rounds by the legendary and undefeated Chael Sonnen, and then in the last round he threw up that triangle and submitted Chael Sonnen, that just proves that he just never gives up and he's just always looking to win. And he also has 10 title defenses, which is pretty impressive. But just like Jon Jones, Anderson Silva has also been popped for steroids, so I don't think we can really talk about him as being the GOAT. And he was fighting cans. He wasn't fighting people who were like that good at fighting. He fought Forrest Griffin. Everyone good he fought, he lost to. And his ego just got way too high and he started losing way too much. And even though he was out of his prime when he was losing all of these fights, he still lost them and they're still on his record. Plus, he lost to Jake Paul, so like what the hell. And now last but definitely not least is Demetrious Johnson, also known as Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse might be the most balanced fighter on this list. He has good striking, he has good kicks, he has good jiu-jitsu, good wrestling. He can pretty much just do anything he wants inside the ring. But the thing is with Mighty Mouse is the fact that he never really fought good competition. He fought good guys, but he didn't really fight anyone that special. And when he did fight someone that like we know now, he lost to them. And he also just did a lot of his like MMA accomplishments outside of the UFC. He's got a win against Henry Cejudo, but he also has a loss against Henry Cejudo. He lost to Dominic Cruz, but then again, Dominic Cruz was much bigger than him in that fight. But they are still losses. He kind of lost to anyone like super good. But he is really good. If he was the same size as Dominic Cruz, he probably would have beat him. Mighty Mouse is just kind of like the fighter that you say is the GOAT if you haven't really looked into it. And no one's really going to like press you on it. No one's going to challenge you if you say Mighty Mouse is the GOAT. He's kind of like the respectable answer. But anyways, those are the top 4 GOATs that people usually have. And now I'm going to rank them all and just do a quick breakdown on all of them. And I will tell you who I think is the right GOAT of the sport. At number 4, we have Khabib. Like I said earlier, he just didn't really fight anyone that good except for 3 people who had 0 ground game. And he retired way too early, and that affects his legacy. And that's why he's number 4. And at number 3, we have Anderson Silva. He got busted for roids, fought cans for most of his career, has too many losses because his ego got ahead of him, but he is still a very good fighter, and he's super well balanced. And now coming in at number 2 on the list is Jon Jones. And he has a good resume, good record, he fought good competition, he's super skilled, but then again, he uses roids more than anyone else in the entire UFC, and he cheats in every single one of his fights. So if he does that, you can't really call him the GOAT. And coming in at number 1 is GSP. GSP is the GOAT of the UFC in my opinion. He's 100% never cheated. He never uses roids that we know of. He's fought good competition, is a double champ. He's just super well balanced. He can do anything. He's a genius inside the octagon. And if we're saying that you can't be a GOAT if you use roids, the top other 2 are just immediately getting knocked out of the list. So it kind of just leaves Georges St-Pierre as being the GOAT under process of elimination. And I think it's a good thing to say that GSP is the GOAT. He retired on top, which is also another thing that a lot of other fighters haven't done. Like Khabib did, but he also retired too early. Jon Jones won't retire on top because he's going to get knocked out by Tom Aspinall, hopefully. But yeah, I think GSP is the GOAT of the UFC. But anyways, that's just my list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you agree with my list? Do you have a different one? Comment down your list of GOATs in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos like this, I have a video on how I think Charles Oliveira will beat Ilia Topuria if they do end up fighting. And I also have a video on how I believe that Jon Jones has been to a Diddy party. But anyways, if you made it this far, consider leaving a like, subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.